Well, welcome back to another episode of Breakaway from the Rat Race. And today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jason Stewart, who played quarterbacks at University of Memphis. And, we invest in Memphis, so we know it pretty well. And so he then turned entrepreneur and was featured in Yahoo Finance, USA Today, and even Shark Tank. He's been trading Forex in the last 3 years, so foreign exchange trading. And one of his video, he basically shows how he managed to make $100,000 in one trading day. So that's pretty amazing. I haven't seen anything like this except on your video. How are you doing, Jason?
I'm doing phenomenal. I appreciate you bringing me on here once again. I know you talked about with everything going on right now, we're all looking for glimpses of hope and inspiration. And the late, great Nipsey Hussle talks about inspiration being the highest form of currency. So, yeah, I feel like I have an obligation to inspire and impact the world any way I can.
Yeah, that's very good. So let's start with your story, kind of like where you got started and how you get to be quarterbacks and for the Memphis in Memphis and stuff like that, and then let's get it started there.
100%. First and foremost, growing up, I was actually a basketball player, and I didn't get started in football until late in my high school career. And whereas most people, they grew up playing Pee Wee in middle school, so on. And once I started playing, I really fell in love with it, especially quarterback individually. You touch the ball every single play. You have so much control over the game.
Yeah.
And I just really started to enjoy and embrace the adversity that the game brought. But fast forward to my senior year, I didn't actually get to start on my varsity team until my senior season. So when it comes to recruiting, especially in the early 2000s, 2011 was my senior season.
Yeah.
I didn't have any scholarships, Division I, Division II, Division III. Nobody really wanted me. And I just remember how frustrating it was, feeling like I was a Division I talent, but not having any schools show interest.
Yeah.
And, I ended up going to junior college. I had to spend 2 years there. I actually went to two separate junior colleges just to put in perspective, how much bouncing around I did. But after my second season at Fort Scott Community College, I actually became the #1 quarterback in the nation and committed to the University of Memphis. So for me getting to Memphis, I remember, this is it. I made it. Most people where I grew up didn't go D1, especially not in football. So it was kind of like me making a D1 was like making it to the NFL from where I come from. And, when I actually showed up on campus, there was this 6'7", 240-pound guy who also played quarterback. And I remember thinking to myself, why didn't I check the roster before I signed that piece of paper?
Yeah.
And I just remember the first time I even saw him throw a pass, I was like, yep, I'm not going to play much. And once again, I was a great player, but I was sitting behind a first-round talent. The individual I'm talking about is Paxton Lynch. He ended up getting drafted in the first round to the Denver Broncos. But what I always try to remind people is time stands for things I must experience. And when I actually ended up at the University of Memphis, not getting to play was actually one of the biggest blessings that ever happened, because I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. I was that kid in middle school doing the lemonade and Kool-Aid stand. I was selling candy in school. I was selling North Face jackets. I was doing whatever I could to try to make some extra money. And when I actually was at the University of Memphis, there was an entrepreneurship class that I got to take for a summer. And it was like over with after that. I started my own clothing company and was designing athletic gear for Christian athletes. And I created a shirt. This was probably the product that really helped me like blow up and expand. It was called the Blessed shirt. And I had the word blessed hanging out of the side on the dry fit. And I just remember we were undefeated and Ole Miss was undefeated. It was an ABC game, 3 million people watching. And by halftime, it was trending on Twitter, bless shirt, where's these bless shirts? And then what's funny is we ended up winning that game. So, shout out to Memphis. We won and would end up, having a very good season that year. But that next day, I actually got a call from Willie Gregory. He was the executive director of Nike. And he called me in. He said, hey, Jason, listen, I don't know what you're doing on Monday, but I would love to sit down with you. So, I show up thinking like, wow, I made it. I'm about to partner with Nike. And I remember him looking me in the eyes and telling me, hey, you got to stop, you got to stop having those guys wear the shirts. And I was like, what do you mean? and
Oh,
he essentially
really?
said it was a conflict of interest, you know, because at the end of the day, they're paying Memphis and Ole Miss a lot of money to wear
Yeah.
Nike. So when more people are talking about, you know, this blessed shirt that they have nothing to do with, you
Yeah.
know, obviously that can be a frustration. But what was the best takeaway from that conversation was, you know, I told them I did exactly what they did in the Olympics. You know, there was a
Yeah.
certain, I can't remember the year, but there was a
Yeah.
certain
Yeah.
year that Adidas had actually paid for the naming rights.
That's right.
Uh,
Yeah.
and Michael Johnson stole the show when he won, you know, 3 gold medals, I believe it was. And he took his all gold Nike spikes and hung them around his neck with the
Mm-hmm.
medals. And
Mm-hmm.
so more people ended up walking away talking about Nike than Adidas. And that's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
guerrilla marketing at its finest. So, you know, after talking to Willie about that, he was like, you know, you're a smart kid. And I told him, you know, if there's any way we could partner, I would love to. And once again, he said it was a conflict of interest because it had to do with religion.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Nike didn't want to, you know, get entangled with any of that. So, you know, moving forward, obviously, you know, Paxton ended up going to Denver. He asked me to come out there and live with him, which I was stoked to do. You know, it's my best
Yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
We spend every, you know, hour together at Memphis. And that was really an eye-opener for me. You know, I always talk to
Mm-hmm.
people about this identity crisis
Yeah.
that student athletes go through. Because
Yeah.
for so long, all you know is that, you know, I'm Jason the football player. I'm Jason E. Even when
That's
I would
right.
go
Yeah.
out to
Yeah.
eat with family, you know, my mom and dad, the first thing that they would tell people is, you know,
Yeah.
my son plays football at the University of Memphis.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once that's stripped away from you, you know, it's almost like you have to recreate your whole identity.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going through that. I mean, I studied as an actuary to be an actuary and stuff like that. Spent many years to become an actuary, and my parents always introduced me to, oh, this is my son Eric. He's the actuary. Blah 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 blah. But I quit actuarial science after I think I've worked on it like 6 years as a consulting actuary, and then I quit that and I went into high tech. And but for years after, my parents still introduced me. Oh, my son, this is my son, the actuary. They completely disregarded that I started a business, that I was very successful in high tech and all of that, and that I moved to California and all of that. That none of that mattered because I just like I was no longer the identity that they had attached to me was in conflict, and it completely disregarded who I was today and stuck to the past as something that that doesn't that I obviously decided to move away from. So I think that also that there's so many people too that they studied something, they studied engineering, but then they start a business, they studied this, and then and I think you're one of those individuals as well. I think it's more likely like on professional athletes or actors and stuff like that, where their identity is really at stake when they become a football player or an NBA player or something like that. They become that persona, and it's really hard to shed that away and then kind of start anew. You just kind of you have to start with a new Jason, and then
Exactly.
a new avatar. So
So
right,
true, though. It's so true.
yeah, but I think you did pretty well because you kind of like you incorporated into the new you, I think. And then yeah, this is part of my story, this is part of my journey and all of that. And things, I roll with the punches, and I kind of like
Right.
I move forward. There's some stuff that I learned when you were a quarterback, I'm sure. And because I think quarterback also is somebody that's very, you have to think strategically
Right.
and focus on, I've never been a quarterback, but from what I read, is like
Right.
you have to focus, you have to kind of like, you have to, you have to focus on, you can't focus on the whole field ahead of you. You have to kind of focus on one area for the pass that you want to make. You have to already know what is going to happen, and then you have to look a certain way, fake certain things in order for the play to
Right.
work and all of that. So it's a lot of coordination and all that. And I think that's the same in business. And I think that's what you discovered. That's what you leverage
Right.
in your business career. So So that's very good. And so I think, yeah, that's really an inspiration. There are a lot of people like that. If we go back to kind of when you were at, you were kind of like looking at education versus sports and stuff like that. I
Right.
think that there are a lot of kids out there that are in the same dilemma. They're in high school, or and then they're deciding, oh, they spend a lot of time in sports because it's thrilling, it's great. There's the whole thing associated with it. You're well known in the school and all of that. People cheering you on.
Right.
Nobody's cheering you on when you're doing math problems, I tell you. But
Right.
where you
Right.
get
Exactly right.
an A in math, nobody's cheering you. But
Hmm.
so how do you balance the two? How do you balance sports and education, making sure that you keep the two in sync?
For me, education was actually the easy part. I obviously had a bunch of teammates that school wasn't, for them. And even once again, I wasn't a 4.0 student, but, just naturally, I had, I'm not the smartest person in the world, but I am, I do take credit for being intelligent and definitely paying attention and then having a good retention. Like you
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
playing quarterback, people have
yeah,
no idea how thick a playbook is, especially at that level.
yeah.
And so, in order to actually memorize the material and then still be able to be out there on the field and just
On
continue to just pull
Yeah,
from your mental file cabinets.
under pressure as
Yeah,
well, right?
exactly.
So
I mean, think about getting hit by someone, 6'4", 260 pounds full speed, and then still having to have, the mental composure in order to be ready for the next play.
yeah,
And that's what I try to get any athlete to understand, regardless of me playing football. There's certain principles and foundational tools that we've all been given, and we all have to refine,
hmm,
as we're playing those sports. And I just want people to understand that they can apply those tools to anything that they choose to apply them to.
yeah,
And for me, obviously, school was like I know Gary Vee's big on, people understanding that school doesn't define who and what you are. And that's the
yeah,
truth.
yeah,
Majority of the way the system is set up now is to try to get people good at, memorizing something for a short period of time just in order to take the test.
yeah,
And then you no longer have it, here retained.
yeah,
And I just remember I would be sitting in class, drawing in my notebook, clothing designs or figuring out marketing, ideas. And I just continued. It's like my mind was always wandering and focusing on the things I was more passionate about. I just wanted to keep building my business and keep growing. And I just remember like having to balance all three was,
yeah,
more time consuming than anything, because when you're a Division I athlete, you're basically, that's full time. People
yeah,
can say what they want, but if people really understood what the schedule looked like,
hmm,
I was busier then than I am now.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And that's half the reason I love entrepreneurship, is because I am my own head coach. I get to
yeah,
decide how I spend my time and how I delegate it. And that's a blessing, because there were certain days where, you just really don't feel like waking up at 4:30 to go
yeah.
roll around on the
Yeah, it takes a
turf.
lot of discipline, that's for sure. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But at the same time, you don't really have much of a choice, because it's like, if you don't show up, you're off the team. So
hmm,
it really forces you to be accountable. It forces you to understand that it's not just about me, it's about everyone else.
yeah,
The other guys on my team that need me, and, it just the leadership that's required, at
hmm,
that level. It
yeah,
just opened my mind up to so many things. So
hmm,
anybody who's balancing school and sports, obviously it's important to still take care of the classwork, because
yeah,
it's so much easier to not do the homework than it is to
hmm,
do it, right? And
yeah,
I completely understand that. But if people just show up and try their best, that's good enough. But I don't
yeah.
want anyone putting too much weight on, the results or the grades that they get, as in, oh, because I was a bad student in school, I can't then go be successful in
That's right.
life, because that's just simply not the case.
Exactly, exactly. And yeah, that's what in my book that's coming out on Sunday. I mean, I talk exactly about that. There's so many barriers that people have in their mind
Mm.
that, oh, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at business, I don't understand this, so I don't know how to market, I don't know how to sell, I don't know, all these things that are preventing them from, moving forward. And yeah, so I tried to kind of like clear that out before we even go into the real aspect of achieving financial freedom in the book. I think that's very important. And also I think for you, I think when, so you spend all that effort, all of that, and then you end up in a situation in, I think it was in, where you were basically not, you didn't have enough playtime. You were basically not
Right.
recognized for your talent. You were a very talented individual,
Right.
but because of who you were playing,
Right.
because of whoever was there at the time, you end up in a situation where you're not being recognized for who you are. And that's, but you managed to kind of roll with the punches and find another environment, another team, another thing where you can excel. And so I think that's pretty interesting. I think a lot of people would kind of like be beaten down and then just sit there and not do anything, or feel that there's nothing they can do. This is what, what
Right. It is what it
destiny or
is.
whatever, right?
Right.
Exactly, right? But you decide to take action. And I think that's another topic too that I think is important, is that people don't realize, they say, oh, I don't have any control or any power, but you have to
Right.
take control in order to
Right.
and you have to take action, and then you get control of your life and you can get something done. So what was that like at that moment? Like what was, what made you what was the trigger that made you do that, take action and do
Right.
something?
I remember I had a mentor tell me ignorance on fire is better than knowledge on ice. And that's just how I've always been, to be
Yeah,
honest. Like, I jump in the water and figure out how to swim later.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and that's, for me not getting to play, I was putting so much effort and so like putting so much of what I had into that. And to
Hmm.
not get to play, it's like I had to continue to want to put energy and effort into something else.
Yeah, yeah,
Because like if I wasn't, then it would just have eaten me alive, because I'm a competitor, like
yeah,
I
yeah.
have this
Exactly.
internal drive. And
Yeah,
I try to get people to understand, there's an internal pressure that we can, that we all have. It's just being able to flip that switch on,
yeah.
especially when we do stuff and we don't see immediate results. I see
Hmm.
so many people at the beginning of January, they have this resolution where, hey, I'm going to go to the gym, and and I don't know what the statistic is, but by February, most of those people aren't hitting the gym anymore. And
Yeah,
oftentimes it's because they're doing things in order to see results. And when they don't
yeah,
see those results immediately, then they give up.
yeah,
And, for me, especially, I've always just been action based versus results based. Like,
yeah.
I just know if I continue, like, I have this obsession, I don't want to call it an addiction. I want to call it obsession,
Yeah.
because it's like once, and I say God plants the seed. I feel like it's a mutual plant,
Hmm.
because once the seed gets planted, then it's just like nobody can tell me otherwise, and I feel like people need to understand the importance of that, because at the end of the day, opinions don't pay the bills. People are so quick to shoot our dreams down, but they aren't even planting seeds for their own.
Yeah.
And that's why I've always just, even with going Division 1, so many people told me going to junior college was a waste of time. Even some of my own coaches in high school told me I was a Division 2 talent. And if I had allowed
Wow.
that to
Yeah.
shift, if I had allowed that to mold my actual life, then I would have had to be willing to live with the results that they had placed upon me. And
Yeah.
so it's just always been this obsession with, once I have an idea, once I believe in it so much, then I trust in God to, like, lead my steps. But I also am not just sitting around waiting for him to just make something happen. Like,
Yeah.
I'm doing something every single day, even if it's small, even if it's
Exactly. Yeah. Mm.
listening to, Damon John, Power of Broke,
Yeah.
even if it's, watching some YouTube videos of other people who have already started clothing companies and have been successful,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's what I just always try to teach people to understand is, if you learn from your own mistakes, you're doing it the wrong way. The
Hmm.
most, the smartest individuals are going to learn from other people's mistakes, so you can try to avoid them yourself.
Hmm.
And it just was this relentless, just, you know, because obviously, like we talked about before, as busy as we were with school and sports, to
Yeah.
imagine doing you're creating your own business from scratch. And we
Yeah.
both know how expensive. I think there's a stat that said the average start of a business is anywhere from like 30 to 50,000.
Mm-hmm.
And all I was getting was $1,300 checks every month.
Yeah.
And that had to pay for rent, that had to pay for food, gas, utilities,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
And I was taking $700 to go buy LLC to have, you see what I'm saying? It's a different level of sacrifice.
Yeah,
And
that's right.
I tell people sacrifice comes before success in the dictionary and in life.
Mm-hmm.
And people have to be willing to endure, that level of frustration in order to get to ultimately where they want to go.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Absolutely. So to me, yeah, that's you talk about taking action. You also talk about taking action on a regular basis, and that's also something I mentioned in the book, is to have a daily practice where you say, okay, well, this is, I have a block of time every day that I have 30 minutes. It doesn't have to be that long, but 30 minutes or to basically sit down and really think about, like, what's the plan? What am I going to do today to advance my personal agenda, reach my goals? And I think that's very important. And so I think you've hit on that as well. So you're there sitting on watching Paxton throw the ball around and during the game, and then you decide to say, okay, well, I'm going to start drawing my clothing line and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So that's basically kind of I'm making a kind of make light of it, but it's basically what happened, right? You're thinking about, hey, this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And then there you go. You have something going on. Things are great. You obviously hit something like a chord, I would say. Mm-hmm. And then lots of people saw your clothing line. And then you hit the 6'4", 300-pound Nike.
Right.
So how did that make you feel? Did you like I know you mentioned that, oh yeah, this is how you try to turn this around. Is there a partnership that we can do? Is there something that can be done and all that? But so what did that leave you after that conversation, or that that tackle from Nike?
Well, two things I want to talk about. First is the importance of not being a cancer to your team, because oftentimes, other people in my situation, you come in, you're the number one guy in the nation, and you're competing, and it's healthy, and, ultimately I didn't win, and me, once again, being business minded, I understand is no different, these sports is the same way. We gotta have the general out there that's best fit for our team. And so there's two options you can take. One is you can either lay down and, just, like, coach doesn't like me, like, this is BS, like, he's not even that good. And you start, you're a cancer to the team. You're a cancer to the overall vision of where you're going to go. Or your second option is you continue to show up every single day and work as though you're the starter. You continue to prepare as though you're the starter. You continue to show love to the starter the same way you would want him to show love to you. And I feel like that's really a testament to who I am as a person, because most people would oftentimes choose the first option because they're so frustrated with not getting the shine, not getting the limelight. And I was like actually talking to my mom about this today. One of the most frequently asked questions that people would give me in Memphis is that as soon as they found out I played football, they'd be like, oh, what position do you play? I'll tell them, I play quarterback. They would say, do you start? Are you the starter? And as soon as I would say no, I could sense this okay. And, it's just like that, like consistent, like, once again, you hear that and it weighs on you, because it's like, just because I'm not the starter doesn't mean I'm not talented, doesn't mean that I could still, come in at some point and ball out. And obviously, fast forward later in my career at Memphis, I actually did win MVP when we played against Cincinnati. And that game specifically just kind of let me know that, all the times that I was preparing and still staying ready. There's a quote that says, if you stay ready, you never have to get ready. And it didn't matter that I wasn't starting. I just was always preparing as if. And that the reason I say that is because it was the same thing with Nike. Even though they shot me down it didn't, it didn't matter if it was Nike. It didn't matter if it was, Jeff Bezos. It didn't matter who it
Yeah.
was, because I had already seen what I needed to see. And
Yeah.
there was enough people out there that,
Yeah.
had, like you said, a chord had been struck. And at the end of the day, if you have a product or service and you see that there's people who are, in need of it or wanting it, then that's all the confirmation that you need. So moving forward, I just continued to create new ideas. And if anything, I was frustrated. If anything, I became more frustrated about a couple of years later when I saw that Nike had actually partnered up and actually created the hijab, which is for Muslim. It's a headwear for Muslim women. And once again, I love Muslim people. It's nothing to do with that.
No,
It's
I know what you mean, though. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
It's frustration with Nike because they told me we couldn't, work together
Be associated.
with religion. But then fast forward, it's like they're creating products based on religion. And that's where it's, once again, in business, especially with these bigger companies, is, they'll tell you one thing and then do another. But it was just phenomenal. The clothing company hasn't been at the forefront of my focus, but
I was wondering about that, like, and where you are with your clothing company at the moment.
Right. And once I moved out to Denver, I was still trying to run the business, but I remember reading in a book by Damon John where he talked about when he was starting FUBU, he failed multiple times, and he was having to work a part-time job in order to keep his business expenses separate from his personal expenses. And that's when I found myself working at Target. I didn't have a car. I had $2,000 to my name, but I was living with a millionaire, and it's like, you know what I mean? People, like, on the outside looking in, people are like, oh, he's got it made, but I didn't have it made. He had it made, know? And that was probably one of the most depressed, moments of my life, because I was walking to work, stocking shelves from 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. every day in the Denver cold, just to give people, a perspective of what that must have been like. And I just found myself coming home, exhausted and depressed. And like I said, feeling like I had no more value. And I just started Googling ways to make money online. I started doing surveys. I was looking at real estate. But once again, without having a vehicle, I knew there would be not many ways for me to actually go check out the property. So I ended up coming across Forex. There was this 18-year-old kid who had never been to college, didn't have any degrees, but he was making, $60,000, $70,000 a year and had his time freedom. And not only was the money cool, but I saw him traveling the world and doing what he wanted. And that was enough to catch my attention to reach out and say, hey, bro, what is it that you do? And he said, I trade Forex. And when he said I trade Forex, I thought that stood for fake Rolex. It goes to put in perspective, like, how little I knew or had been taught about financial markets or anything. And I told him, I was like, hey, bro, listen, man, I'm not into that. Like, I don't even wear watches, let alone am I going to sell a fake one. And he was like, what? And I was like, yeah, Forex, fake Rolex. And he was like, no, bro, it's the foreign exchange market. And that was June 26, 2017. Once again,
Wow.
I'm like an elephant.
Fresh. Yeah.
I'm like an elephant. I don't forget, even when people would tell me, hey, Jason, you're wasting your time with that, that Forex is a scam. And, it's like I was getting so much negative energy towards me starting on this new journey. And I came to realize quickly, people are afraid of what they don't know. And you even see that going on right now with the division in our country. So many people didn't have, they weren't fortunate enough and blessed enough the way I was to be surrounded and embodied by so many different cultures. Growing up in the DMV area, we have so many different army bases and so many different things that it's like a melting pot. And I'm so grateful for that, because I literally got to see every different culture, and I got a lot of respect for them. I got to know them. And it just gives you a whole different perspective and way to see life.
Yeah, I agree. So I want to talk about stay ready, because I think that was, and what was my idea on that? Oh my goodness, I forget. But I think this. Oh yeah, that's right. So I think this is very important, right? Because I think that people are always. You never know who you're going to meet, who you're going to talk to, and all of that. And I
Right.
think, like you mentioned, I think it's important to always stay ready. And I think, the 7 Habits guy also always says, like, keep sharpening the saw or whatever, or your knife, sharpening something, sharpening the blade. And then
Right.
so
Exactly.
it's kind of like that. You just keep at it. And for me, it's also about the daily practice. Is just you keep working at it and refining your skills and all of
Right.
that. And this is this is why I talk to athletes, because they're used to that. They're used to
Always
doing
getting
it,
better.
and refining their skills and all of that.
Right.
And so yeah, so that's the one an important topic as well about staying ready, is that you never know who you're going to meet and who you're going to be talking to. You can be
Right.
having a coffee somewhere, and then being able to know, hey, what your business is about. What do you need in order to be successful? Do you need investors? Do you need property to buy? Do you need all that kind of stuff? And be open to what comes your way, and be also be ready to to tell people what you need and what you and how you can help them as well. So I
Right.
think that's something that's very interesting.
And that whole quote about the sharp blade in general comes
Yeah.
from, when somebody was asked if they have 7 hours to cut down a tree, how would they spend it?
Oh
And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah,
you have the one individual who's just hacking away at it,
yeah,
and you have the other individual who spent 5 hours sharpening his blade to then only
yeah,
have to spend two cutting it down.
yeah.
And so that whole concept is so true. But I think the biggest thing with that is treating everybody the same, whether
Mm,
they have $1 billion or $1.
yeah.
You, like you said, you never know who you're speaking with. So as long as you have that same level of integrity and respect for whoever you're talking to, it
Hmm.
doesn't matter. I don't have to speak with you differently than I
Yeah,
do, with the guy standing outside of Starbucks that I give $5 to.
yeah, yeah,
And that's just what I always tell people. It's the whole treat others how you want to be treated, and
yeah,
that's just the truth.
yeah, yeah. Either help people. You have to help people, but you also have to be willing to be helped as well. So
Right, exactly.
so yeah, it goes both ways. We're always in the middle somewhere. There's always somebody that has done things we haven't done, and we need help with that. And then there's always people that you can help. So it's kind of like
Right.
you have to give and take. So definitely. So Forex. So I had Forex. That yeah. So how did you get started in Forex? And is it yeah? How did you get started? I know you mentioned this individual that told you about Forex, but how did then you act? What did you do after that to get started into that? Because that's
Right.
pretty unusual. Everybody would know about stock market. They would know
Right.
real estate is pretty obvious because it's
It's
something
been
that's
around so long.
tangible.
Right.
A stock is almost it's intangible, but it's at least it's a company or something like that. I say, oh, I like Amazon, so or I like IBM, or
Right.
I like Apple. So it's not so bad. But now you're talking about foreign exchange, about currency pairing,
Right.
and economy, global economy. So so yeah, tell me about that journey.
Yeah, 100%, man. It's like I said, June 26, 2017. So it's been a
Mm,
little, a little over 3 years. I actually been telling people I'm going into my senior season because once again, the way we talk about playing quarterback, I still, even on Instagram, my handle is still QB Stew, and the reason why I take so much pride in that is because, like I said, I'm still playing quarterback. It's just on a different field.
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
I view the markets no different. Even how I teach and train individuals on Forex is just like football. We have our
yeah,
entry, which is our line of scrimmage. We have our
yeah,
take profit, that's our touchdown.
yeah,
Pips, the increments in which we measure is
mm,
yards.
yeah,
So I just literally I knew the only way that I would ever truly stay in the game long term and be passionate about it is if I made it something fun. I had
yeah,
to essentially turn trading into Madden.
yeah, yeah,
And so starting out, it wasn't like that. Starting out, I didn't have somebody to teach me, trading in that light.
yeah,
And it was very frustrating. I'll be the first to tell you I hated it. It's just like, but every time I got frustrated, every time I wanted to quit, I kept reminding myself, if not this, then what?
yeah,
If I don't do this, what else out there is going to give me the results, give me the lifestyle, give me the
Yeah.
things that I've always wanted. I think the average American vacations two to three times a year. And I
Mhm.
kept saying to myself, do I want to work to vacation or make my life a vacation?
Yeah.
And, the first year was a struggle. I really didn't have much results. And I think I
Mhm.
was just reading a statistic earlier that over 60 to 70% of people quit trading within their first month.
Mhm.
So let's take something that doesn't involve investing. Let's talk about learning how to play piano.
Yeah.
If I started learning how to play piano and quit within my first 30 days, I would never end up being a live performer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want people, once again, we've created this microwave mentality in today's society because everything is so quick. You order your food and it shows up to your door within an hour.
Yeah.
You call an Uber and they're there to pick you up. You send
Mhm.
somebody money on Cash App and it's instantly deposited. And so
Yeah.
it's this microwave mentality versus like the oven or the crock pot.
Yeah.
That ultimately, ends up, the food tastes better. It keeps its nutrients. The juices
Yeah.
are soaked into the veggies, into the potatoes. So I just want people to understand that sight is a function of the eyes and vision is a function of the heart. So
Mhm.
the thing that differentiates us from any other species is the ability to see into the future.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
want people to really grasp onto that because I won't say nobody, but a very, very small percentage of people will ever get those life-changing results within
Yeah.
that 30 days. Just like we were
Mhm.
talking about working out, it's that compound effect of, okay, even though I've been to the gym 3 times this week, this is my first 3 times going.
Yeah.
So I can't
Yeah.
expect a six-pack, at the start of week 2. Like, I
Yeah.
just got to keep showing up, and showing up isn't enough. You got to
Yeah.
show up and give it your all, and that's the biggest thing is, I just continue to show up and give it everything I had,
Mhm.
even when I wasn't getting results.
Yeah.
And with this is honestly the toughest thing is the fact that when you fail, you're actually losing money.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
the blown accounts that I had early on, and once again, people talk about disposable income. I didn't have any disposable income. Like, I was making
Yeah.
$300 a week at Target.
Yeah.
So, when I would save up $1,000 to try to start trading live, I really cared about that 1,000. That was
Yeah.
almost like, that was 3 weeks, to a month's work of income.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just want people to understand, that pain. Once again, it gives you two options. You can either lay down and quit and fold and just say, you know what, this isn't for me, or you can keep pushing through. And it
Yeah.
just really goes to show what people are made of. That's
Yeah.
what separates, a lump of coal from a diamond, is that adversity. And that's what I try to get people to understand is, these tests lead to the testimonial.
Yeah.
Whenever that vision is being questioned, it's really just the universe and God wanting to make sure that you actually mean what you say,
Mhm.
because when a storm comes, it's like, how do you actually respond? And so all the blown accounts, all the sleepless nights, getting up and trading during London session, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I just kept reminding myself, like, this will be worth it, even though right now I'm not getting, the actual outcome that I want. At the end of the day, whether it takes 5-10 years, it'll still be worth it because I know this is a skill set that nobody can take away from me.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
different than football, except with football, it has a lot more to do with your actual physical traits and abilities. Whereas
Mhm.
with trading, it's 80% psychology and emotion. So
Yeah.
I know that everything that's up here is going to allow me to continue to keep leveling up.
Yeah. So how long? So I really like your microwave mentality kind of example there, and I
Right.
think that's true. I mean, I think and I think this is a problem with society moving forward is that we are into these, everything is broken down into the 30-second increment, even now with YouTube. I mean, that's pretty much all I watch right now is YouTube. I don't have cable TV, so everything is YouTube. So I watch like 3 minutes, 5
Right.
minutes. I can't even. I tried to watch TV the other day. Somebody had that on, and I could not watch it. It was like so many. It was so long and lengthy and not going anywhere.
Right.
And then all the commercials and all that. It's just
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's. So I mean but I think it's important. I mean, when I invest, though, is I invest for long term. So a lot of
Right.
people are thinking, "Oh, I'm investing for my retirement the next, 20 years or so."
Right.
But for me, like I'd like to kind of blow that out and say, "No, I'm investing for future generations. I'm investing
Right.
to leave a legacy for my children," and that changes a lot in terms of how you invest as well, because now you're not just thinking about some of the options, investment options are out, like an annuity, for example, or something that one of those uh, where you basically withdraw from your IRA over a period of time, like the
Right.
4% rule, I think they call it, where you basically withdraw 4% of your assets, your invested assets on the stock market every year to pay for your expenses. So at the end of the if you die early, you're going to leave some. But unfortunately, if you have a very long life, then your children won't get anything.
Right.
So that's why I'm trying to kind of say, my investment horizon is 100 years,
Right.
right? And that makes you look at things a little bit differently when you invest, I think. So I really like your comment about that whole microwave
Mentality.
mentality and all of
Hmm.
that. So in the foreign exchange world that you're living in today, so who do you think should consider that? Like, who is there anybody that if you are this type of person, you shouldn't really consider that? And so who are the right people, the right personality trait, or the right characteristic or attributes of an individual that wants to do that should do foreign exchange trading?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because once again, we tell people the percentages of becoming a professional athlete are low, but we
Mhm.
won't shoot down anyone's dreams
Yeah,
of becoming that. We tell people, to become a musician or a celebrity is low, but we don't want to shoot people's dreams down, with that. And
yeah,
so it's once again, the success rate of Forex is only like 5%. So out of 100 people, 95 of them are going to lose money.
yeah,
And I was a part of that 95, and it's just once again, this obsession, this relentless will that once again, if I don't do this, what else is out there for me?
hmm,
And so, I've actually recently partnered up with a company that actually provides expert advisors. So it's essentially like a software
hmm,
that helps people trade. And that's
yeah,
been
yeah, yeah,
exciting for me because, so many people reach out to me, even friends, families, loved ones. And the first thing that they want to do is just give me money to trade for them. And I don't do that because once again, I think it's when we are able to leave our emotion and psychology out of the trading, then it allows us to actually get a lot better results.
hmm,
So when you're
yeah,
trading, for someone that you care about, and like money that you really are starting to have an emotional tie to, it creates this like block. And once again, at the end of the day, I can't trade for everybody who I love,
yeah, yeah,
So it's just the importance of people leveraging technology to help them get the results. And then also at the same time, it doesn't force them to try to rush and speed up their process.
hmm,
Oftentimes when people start learning about Forex and start learning about trading,
yeah,
they want to dive into the market immediately. It's
yeah,
like when you learn a new trick in skateboarding, oh, I gotta go try it. I gotta
yeah,
go put it to use. And once again, the difference in that is you might scrape your knees up, you might get a bloody elbow. You're not actually losing money. And
yeah,
so this
yeah,
niche is definitely a tough one. I tell people the example that I give is with an expert advisor, like an artificial intelligence helping people trade. That's like going to the zoo,
yeah.
where you can see the lions, they're dangerous. You can see the tigers, you see the silverback gorilla, but it's all behind the cage, so you're still
Yeah,
relatively safe.
yeah,
Whereas trading manually and doing it on your own is like Jurassic Park.
yeah,
You're going in there and you got a flashlight, a machete, and a canteen,
yeah,
and you got to quickly become resourceful and
yeah,
figure out how to stay alive, or it'll eat you up and spit you out quickly. So
yeah,
it's just been exciting for me because we look at how technology is changing the game in all aspects of life. So of course the first thing that people are going to start applying it to is the financial markets, because it's
yeah,
like like money never gets tired, money never calls in sick, it doesn't take vacation. You know, if people understand how to allow money to work for them, then, you know, it's once again, it's a game changer, because when we look at what's most important, time is the most important, you know, thing that we have. Most people will say time is money, but
Yeah.
no amount of money can buy time.
Yeah.
And so the reason why we have that thought process is because 80% of us have grown up in homes where the only way you get paid is if you go clock in somewhere.
Yeah.
And so it's just been, once again, like at the rightful age of 27, you know, I look at how have I been able to go from a greenhorn, you know, a novice in Forex, to now posting about $100,000 in a single day.
Yeah.
And once again, it's because this relentless obsession with, it doesn't matter how many accounts I've blown leading up to this, you know, I'm just going to continue to get better. And once again, you know, there's been times where it hurts so bad where I was out the markets for months. You know, blowing an account hurts so bad that it's like, not only did I not have money to go back live trading, but it's like, it was so devastating that it was like I had to take a break. And even while I was taking a break from live trading, I was still learning. I was still sharpening my blade, like we talked about. So it's just important for anyone that, you know, that's listening, or comes across this story later, to understand that, you know, investing is for everybody. And that doesn't mean you have to have, you know, some crazy amount of capital. Investing isn't just money. You know, investing is how you spend your time, what foods you eat, what books you read, you know, what shows you watch. Investing is everything. When we look around, it's all about what we're actually, you know, putting, you know, that energy and focus into. So I just want people to understand, because it's so much easier for somebody to say, well, I don't have extra money to invest, right? And that's the mentality that won't get, you know, they're not going to get further in life, because it's so much easier to make that excuse, right? It's so much easier to talk about how heavy the weights are than to actually try and lift them.
My focus is passive income, financial freedom, and stuff like that. And this, obviously, a good one for that is there's a couple of different strategies that you can use for that. But I don't have Forex on my list of passive income strategy. But you know, so I'd like to know kind of like, how much time do you spend every day or per week or per month doing your Forex trading? And then the rest of the time is just like free time. What is your a day in the life of Jason and the Forex trader?
You know, starting out, it was every day. You know, it was starting out. It was like I said, you know, it just was. I was so sick of work that I knew if I didn't make this work, I would go back to work. You know, and I wasn't doing that. You know,
I had one of those. Yeah,
I wasn't doing that.
Oh no.
Exactly. And so once again, you know, it's like I would watch 2-3 hours of videos, and then I had to go eat, you know, a sandwich or something, and, you know, take a break. And then I'd come back and watch. And it's like I said, this frustration, because it's all this brand new information, and, you know, it's hard not to get overwhelmed. But, you know, fast forward 3 years later, you know, now it's like the markets aren't going anywhere. So I tell people it's important to know yourself. You know, now if I have a good week in the market, sometimes I'll take the rest of the week off, or sometimes I'll take the whole month off. You know, and that's what I always remind myself. I remember after I had the 100K day, I was actually on the phone with my dad a couple of days later, and he said, hey, you know, when are you going to get back in there and start making more money? And I said, Pops, think about it like this. If I just spent the last 3 years planting seeds, you know, to see strawberries grow, when I actually see the strawberries grow and I cut them and I wash them and I put them in a bowl to eat, why should I rush eating the strawberries? Like, it took so long to finally have them here in front of me. I'm not going to rush that, you know? And so many people, once again, like the reason why so many people do fail is that greed, that need and want for more. And, you know, I've just become so much more patient with it. I've just learned to, you know, be grateful for what I have, because if we don't start our day with a foundation of gratitude, then it's like, how can God or the universe, you know, want to give us more if we're not grateful for what we already have? So, you know, even when I didn't have money, I was still posting about, you know, it's the things in life that money can't buy that make me rich. And even to this day, I still have that mindset. You know, as good as this financial freedom has been, you know, at least for me, once again, financial freedom is different for everybody. You know, if people have very low overhead and expenses, then it's like, what is really required in order to have that freedom?
Yeah.
And so the same mentality, my mentor told me, he said, Jason, when you're a millionaire, you need to think and move as though you're broke. And when you're broke, you need to think and move as though you're a millionaire. And, that's always been the case for me. It's like, even as I start to expand and reach new levels, I know
Mm.
I gotta keep working just as hard as I did when I was that kid at Target.
Yeah.
And that's why to this day, I still have that shirt, from when I
Yeah.
was working at Target. I have it, on the door in my office, because I need that constant reminder that even though right now, you feel like you're doing well, never become complacent, always continue to have that chip on your shoulder. That same chip that got me Division 1 is the
Yeah.
same chip that's giving me results now in the markets.
So in terms of, I think that's going to be the last question. It's going to be around the money management. So,
Right.
so this is what happens to, it happens with a lot of traders. It happens with real estate agents, with salespeople that make huge commissions and stuff like that. And you kind of have these ups and downs. You have, peak $100,000 one day, but the next day you're not making $100,000. You may be losing a little bit, or not, you're celebrating, or
Right.
for a couple of days, and then you're right. So you're not making money. But what is the strategy? Are you using any strategy to kind of like leverage these peaks and then kind of like managing the money in such a way that you can stay longer in the game? So how are you managing these peaks and valleys, I would say, in revenues?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, like I said, I'm staying patient. Most
Yeah.
people would reach a peak like that and then want to go out and, buy something expensive.
Mm-hmm.
And, literally, like, after I called my mom and my dad, I think I went and got a coffee. And then I came home and, like, I think I played, like, Madden or something, like,
Yeah.
I'm just such a laid back dude, and I always will be, once again, it's
Yeah.
just like, it's not the money, the reason that was such an emotional day for me is because it finally, like, took the shackles off me of always being binded by scarcity. Like, my whole life I've literally, been binded by not having much. And
Yeah.
so, to finally have that, like, moment where it's like I could call my mom and my dad and to share that moment, especially, like I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
with what my mom's going through, like,
Yeah.
that's that ticking, you know what I mean? Where it's like,
Yeah.
I want her to see everything that I told her I'm going to become happen.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I want her to see it firsthand, because, I was telling her these things would happen when I first got started. And once
Mm-hmm.
again, it's so hard for people to see that the same way I could, that vision.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when it comes down to management, it's important, it's even in Ecclesiastics, to put your money in multiple places, because you never know what disaster may come upon the land. And
Mm-hmm.
right now there's a major disaster that's come upon people's land. Now, what's the land? Their bank account, right?
Yeah.
So when you only have one stream and that stream dries up, or something happens to it, and there's, there's nothing flowing from other areas, then
Yeah.
obviously you're in the middle of a drought.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, I just want to keep putting my money into assets. I want to just keep looking for more ways to diversify my own portfolio. And obviously Forex trading is my strongest, niche right now. But
Mm-hmm.
who's to say, when I'm 45, that real estate couldn't be my strongest niche? Or you know what I mean? Who's to say that, I'm not one of the top earners in network marketing in,
Mm-hmm.
10, 20 years. So that's residual income, so it's just so many different ways for people to make money. And I feel like the biggest thing is just people deciding what, stream or what avenue they find themselves most passionate about. Because once again, the money's great, all that's great, but it's time is the most important thing. So if people feel like they're wasting their time and doing things that they're not passionate about, they need to stop now.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, Forex wasn't something that I started being passionate about. It was a forced passion. But once again, sometimes we have to be willing to endure, that frustration if there's nothing else.
That's right. Yeah. Now, very true. Well, thank you, Jason. It was amazing conversation. So thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it. And so if people want to reach out to you, I think you on Instagram is QBStew.
Yes, sir.
QBSTEW. And
yes, sir.
So that's the best place to reach you.
Mm-hmm. Yep. QBStew.
Yeah, and I think on your profile in Instagram too, you have the links to your videos and all of that, where you talk about your 100K day,
most definitely,
all of that. So yeah, I hope that people can go and check it out. And again, thank you, Jason. Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Break Away from the Rat Race with your host, Eric Martel. If you want to share your story and experience with our listeners, please message us on Facebook at Break Away from the Rat Race. Also, please subscribe to our YouTube channel and our podcast on iTunes.